What is going on, my people? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your boy Nasim the Dream, and you know what? If you're new to the channel, just go right on ahead, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell as well to always get notified of my newest content. And today I'm going to be doing a split review, 2 reviews into one video. I will be reviewing the final records from Brockhampton, TM, and the family. Ladies and gentlemen, this is indeed the Texas hip-hop collective Brockhampton's final release as a boy band, dropping double LPs, TM, and the family. Following this, we received the 2021 LP Roadrunner, which was certainly one of my all-time favorites from the band, as well as one of my top records of that year. This record just had so much to follow up to when it comes to an upcoming tour, numerous festival accounts and cities, including Coachella and Palm Beach, California. But unfortunately, with some months passing, the band had announced their indefinite hiatus, confirming that they'd cancel their tour, except this specific show. Now, if you're like me and you dearly really love this band, this was absolutely devastating news to hear, but also left you in question of what led to this decision. Well, all of that will be unfolded in this review. But first, before I get into that, I'm going to be starting off with the LPTM that indeed reads as a classic Brockhampton project, including elements involving a core influence of hip-hop music with touches of R&B, electronic, and synth-pop elements. The intro FMG sparks the fire into sci-fi production schemes and choices, throwing in some oddball synthesizers and effects with Kevin, Don, and Matt spinning up-tempo verses. And then when we move on to the track Animal, this adds this incredible vocal passages from Kevin on this defined chorus and supported with Matt Champion, and ended off with a complimentary outro from Jabari Manoir. As well as I'm really enjoying the melodic work on the track Listerine that's bringing a lot of vibes, reminding me a lot of Travis Scott influences based off this autotune use. And then with the track New Shoes, this reads off as yet another Brockhampton classic. It's just a pretty simple banger that just has great melodic work as well, and trap hip-hop aesthetics to the tune. Another highlight has to start with Keep It Southern, as it carries through this heartfelt pianos, building anticipation onto some instrumental sounding like a true Andre 3000 influence, but with a Brockhampton twist. There's even an infectious dance pop edition with the track Man on the Moon that embarks on electronic keys that soar through the mix, that are just pumping with drums, R&B vocal styles from Matt Champion, and expansion synthesizers. But Matt Champion really brings on even more limelight into his highlights as a vocalist in the track Better Things that glimmer into a lo-fi instrumental alongside with Kevin and Jabba. As we get a little bit closer to this project, we then start to see some deeper concepts buried into the mix, as well as some of the members focusing on some more slow-paced instrumentals. Crucify Me brings a slower, more mellow traditional pop style piano ballad that has an interesting eruption of jazz drums and pianos on the tail end that really find out to be quite entertaining. And I think it's easy to say that the track Always Something puts the icing on the cake with this extremely gifted chorus. This record really does hold a strength in its consistency of bringing so many bops and bangers from Brockhampton, although I will admit the closer is probably the weakest track on the list for me. Even with its great sample selections of Diane Lucky's Goodbye Horses, as well as his final saying goodbye with Matt and Joba embarking on their 7-year experience with the band. And even though I do think this is one of the weaker tracks on the cut, this by far demeans the quality of this track as a whole. I really just felt like I wish I felt more of the emotional impact. But if it isn't clear because of the way I really just breezed through this album is really just prioritized solely as fan service. Okay, so before I give you my final rating percentage for TM, I actually wanted to fix this and give a revision of my final review percentage that I'm actually about to tell you right now. In consideration of what this album really delivers and what it's purposed for, it really is undeniably a rushed album. It is undeniably an album that wasn't given as much effort as their past records, as the Saturation series, as Roadrunner, as Ginger, and the Sisons, etc. So I think that is something to take a part of, and that I really think I should make it effective of my rating. But that doesn't ultimately make this thing such a bad record. Honestly, it's 37 minutes of pretty decent songs, pretty easy to cut through all the way. I mean, there's not really any concepts that really deep dive in, and not really too many deep things said from other members besides Kevin Abstract, but honestly, I think this is way better than what people think, so I'm gonna give it a 73%. And now we finally reach the final album of the family, which in my opinion is possibly the most profound, poetic, and characteristic album from the band. The foundation of this album is essentially carried through boom bap aesthetics, through drum loops, sample styles that especially come off heavily inspired from New York style hip hop hip-hop and R&B. And another important thing I feel like is good to know before I dive into my review, the family is primarily directed through this perspective through Kevin Abstract mostly, with an entire story behind the scenes and throwback moments of the band's entire life coming up from success, fond memories, as well as moments that cracked the band. With the intro Take It Back, Kevin is seen on here embarking on memories regarding the beginnings of the band's fame and fortune, as well as big moments in the members' lives that entail the risks that they took in order to make this thing happen. This whole performance is delivered over some chipmunk style harmonies that are actually pretty endearing. This is then followed by the spiraling RZA that indulges in more college dropout influences sonically, this time chiming in on the way with the irony that Kevin feels when reflecting on what he said about his parents in past writings for certain songs, specifically his mother. On this track, he seems to dread the guilt of essentially dissing his parents, specifically his mom again, on a particular note when it comes to exposing his mom about homophobic thoughts and opinions that essentially scarred Kevin. But then once the deal of his life was made, all of that kind of washed away and began to see him in live in concert, which brought him the guilt. Because day in and day out, he had to perform these songs that still had this writing that his parents always remembered and always understood, yet they still support him. So because he moved on from that, it was just so tough for him to have to say that again. And then with the irony regarding this song, his mother is seen encouraging him to keep the band together, and then remembering about how his mother kept their relationship with her husband together, and even though it didn't work out, that they still live with each other. And then there's also this confession on the third track, Gold Teeth, that's pretty much seen with Kevin stating about the specific thing of why this album was actually a thing. Is partially reasons so they can get out of their contract. But again, that's partially because there's so many great concepts on here that really entail a lot of great details about the band's struggle in life, but it is clear with some of the lines, specifically with the 35-minute demand, of why this album exists. Moving on to the track Big Pussy, which was the first single that was released for this record, displaying an unhinged version of Kevin Abstract that only levels his don't give a fuck attitude even more for this record, which is effortlessly spitted over a hell of a beat. And then you can't ignore the enduring interpretation of the fifth track, All That, which is just such a fresh revision of the classic 90s television hook. What makes this track sorrowful is the deeper confessions of Kevin explaining what the money was really doing to him and how it was never really benefiting him or the band at a certain point. The record funds, the merch funds, as well as his regret with an argument with the band member Don McLennan, eventually feeding into his alcohol addiction as he struggled with multiple things during this time. At a certain point, they were pretty much just forcing things with the band just so they can support their family. It's always the songs that hurt the most that hit the most. Moving on to another concept, Kevin is seen calling out fake fans who pretty much make it their mission to expose members in the band, while they just pretty much just a bunch of randoms that try to spread false narratives just to receive likes and attention. This notion is again mentioned onto the track The Ending, and which with the line about the culture trying to force Kevin and the band to live this custom lifestyle, which is also reverted onto a different spread notion on the track Southside. On the track Good Time, indeed this is a hip-hop track I do believe upholds some replay value in terms of hip-hop aesthetic, but there is something that I really do feel like is very, very important on the song to note about when it comes to Kevin on this intro that I thought was very interesting and mind-opening. He's bringing up this certain situation about when he makes Zoom calls about like personal thoughts and conversations with his friends in the group, and how his immediate thought is to turn this into art. He'll pretty much say, we gotta get this on video, we gotta record this, we gotta post this, yada yada yada. This is ultimately what the demand of the industry and the demand of the media has ultimately done to so many artists. He literally stamps this and calls this a toxic relationship and how it's really fucked up their entire connection. This is just a sad reality because of all the pressure that it just put on so many artists' shoulders because of the industry. It is just such a thing that I feel like needs to be said, and something that really needs to be addressed and looked upon when it comes to the demand of the industry, the demand of the media, the demand of the fan base, because it really does show where we're at in society and how social media has also negatively affected us. We always feel like we need to post this, we need to post that, no matter how personal, and in reality, we really don't, and we probably shouldn't. Next, one of the heaviest concepts comes from the track 37th, which by the way, the title does reference their old recording studio. This goes about with Kevin sharing about how he felt like he let his friends down and ultimately failed them, while also noting about how he met up with ex-member and childhood friend Amir Van. The thing that is just so sad about this is pretty much his regret about how the decision was made of kicking out Amir, which was ultimately Kevin's decision. There's just so much sadness and plead for forgiveness and begging, and just how much Kevin really wants to change in order to save this friendship that he truly did care about and loved. And it also kills him because, especially when Amir released his 2019 project about how he's feeling betrayed and potentially hating Kevin and the band. And then the self-titled track is essentially this stress ball for Kevin as he angrily and drunkenly expresses the struggles of dealing with the fan base alone. Kevin is seen on here getting really upset at his friends of how he pretty much feels like they put all of the responsibility on Kevin's shoulders, but he's also acknowledging that his decisions are also the culprits of the problem. And it even gets to the point on this song where he's pretty much asking for new bandmates. But it's also up in the air since he's drunk, which also leaves us on the open thought for us to decide if he really means this or not. On the track Prayer, Kevin is seen on here begging the God of how he really does not want to leave this chapter in his life that he really did love and felt safe in. And then with the 16 track, the ending, using this great Willie Hatch sample with Kevin continuing to reflect on memories of the band's uprising. And then we end off the track Brockhampton, which essentially is fan service that revisits the making of hit tracks from the band, which is also indulging us into behind the scenes moments that are also helping us understand the band even more, why it ended, and what changed. The symphonies on the song really pierced our heart, as well as this Ruby Winter sample helping us accept that this is really the end. So I'm gonna lay it all out about how I pretty much feel about this album and pretty much the reflection of Brockhampton. This album is really so good from a story perspective, aesthetically throws in a movie forming project that keeps you wanting to hear more from Kevin, but you're really just left speechless due to all the sadness from the truth that's said on here. I think pretty much after hearing what Kevin had to say and about the truths about what was going on in the band and what pretty much the money, the fame, and the industry has done to their friendship, you pretty much need to accept that this is really over if you truly care about these members. Because the truth is, and I really do hate to say this, the band is most likely better off ending it than forcing it. I've stated this multiple times on this channel. I care way more about the health condition and stability of contentness for the individual artists, band members, anyone that creates art that you ultimately appreciate observing. Just hearing about all the downfalls, all the mistakes, all the effects that so many things have pretty much just been caused, you just need to accept this in peace. Ultimately, as a fan, I think I'm using that notion to really help me accept that this band exists and be happy with what this band gave us, because we will never get a group like this to drop 3 records, The Saturation 1, 2, and 3, in the same year, and those records were phenomenal. You really just can't ever expect a boy band to ever come up like this. Something like this is just absolutely rare, without a doubt. Overall, I do really enjoy these albums. I probably prefer one over the other, but they both are very, very different. One is clearly fan service and just letting fans, you know, enjoy and not diving into like some serious concepts necessarily about the dreadfulness of the band being over, just enjoying some simple classic Brockhampton bops. And then this other album, which is pretty much an autobiography for Kevin, and then going about just many struggles that the band had to go through indefinitely. The ultimate message delivered in this album is just such a great send-off, and I can only hope that this just gets better for Kevin and the band for the future. Ending off this review, I am going to give Brockhampton's The Family an 88%. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed, go to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below what you thought of these 2 records. And down in the description, see all the separate checklist ratings I have for the album, more videos, and also the links to my social media accounts so you can keep up with me on the daily. I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Deuces.
Back when we were still outside, church next door, we couldn't afford the tithe. I was only 19, I was down for the ride.